A building. We're going to go over the 4 steps in more detail, but here they are. First is looking at the spine. Second is creating a silhouette. Third is adding the structure. And 4 is adding the details. So the spine is the main structural line or lines of a building. So for example, if I have just a straight rectangular building, the spine is probably going to look something like this, right? I could also have a spine that is curved, and maybe my building is more rounded in shape. I could also have a building that has multiple spines, or maybe it's not just some sort of line. So maybe the spine looks something like that, or maybe it has an interlacing spine, kind of like a double helix. Whatever it is, the spine is what's holding the most weight. It's the integral part of the building. The second is going to be silhouette. I like to think of the silhouette as when you're looking out at a skyline. We've all done this, I think, at some point in maybe our kindergarten art career, where we make a silhouette of a cityscape, and so we see the outline here, right? Or you turn this dark so that it's nighttime, or vice versa. So we want to look for, what is the silhouette? What is that shape that it's making? Now, while there's nothing wrong with this as a silhouette, it's not particularly interesting, right? It's just kind of like a rectangle. So you want to, after you establish what your spine might be, to think about a silhouette. Sometimes I'm just going to start shading. I'd recommend using pencil. I'm just using pen so you can see more clearly. Or let's say if I did have a vertical spine, maybe I might do something like right? These don't have to be perfect. I'd recommend doing a bunch of them just to explore using different combinations of spine and silhouette, spine and silhouette. There can be a million different silhouettes for the same spine. Good examples. We have this building here on the left, so that magenta line would be the spine, and then where the green is scribbled in, that would be the whole silhouette. Or here, the Space Needle in Seattle, that magenta line would be the spine, and then the green scribble would be the silhouette. And if you're wondering, like, well, it doesn't look like a very exciting building, or like, I don't know how this is going to come together, Miss O, are you sure? Then we're going to move on to step 3, which is thinking about the structure. And this is where we're more specifically looking at shapes, form, and not really all the details yet. We're going to get to that later. So what I mean by that is, how can I make this more structural, more feeling like a building? And that might be that I start actually drawing around, right? And I can change things. So maybe I don't want this to be as diagonal. Maybe I want this to be more linear. And maybe I want this to extend out farther. And maybe I want this to step down too. Something like that. And maybe I'll change that so it goes in. Just trying to create an interesting shape. Maybe I'll extend this out a bit to have a base. Right? So that could be one example. Or in here, I might think, okay, maybe I'm going to have something like that. And maybe I want to echo this round curve, so maybe I'm going to add one more up here. And then maybe I can think about this as like a big terrace. And maybe I can think about having some beams coming through these. Maybe there's even beams that are extending out here on the side, right? And I could also think about, you don't have to have beams, but thinking about how that adds something to the design. Right? And now this is starting to feel a bit more exciting, right? Feeling a little bit more like a building. And then the last thing I might want to do is think about details. And so details are where you can more in depth think about scale, think about windows. I don't think anybody wants to be in a building with no windows. I wouldn't think so much about doors, but you might think about balconies. So if I wanted to think about the scale of my piece, the first thing I might do is just set it in a space. Right? And I might think about, okay, how big do I want this to be? Maybe I'm going to make that the size of a tree. So this is huge. If I were to make the size of a tree something like this, doesn't seem as huge, right? Then maybe this is only like 4 stories where this looks like it's like 12 stories. So this is one way that you can establish scale by setting it in a space. Then thinking about things like windows. So I was talking about having these beams here, but what if I just want these to be sheets of glass? And what if here on the side, on these curved walls, I want to have windows coming down, right? Or maybe I do want this to be solid, so I'm going to shade it in even more. But I want all the sides to have these windows. So solid going up and windows on those arches, something like that. And maybe I want this to just be a beam. And maybe this is just going to be a series of windows every other floor. So these are the 4 steps that you want to go through spine, silhouette, structure, shape.